we've got Suella Braverman saying that Britain is going to be a dumping ground for migrants. Some people say it is already. We've certainly had some reaction to that on Twitter as well. What do you make of these plans, Ivon?
No, I don't agree that it will be a dumping ground. I think at the moment, the numbers of people claiming asylum is determined by the weather. So if we have a good weather during the week, we have thousands of people coming across the channel. And if we don't have good weather, it reduces. We need to control our borders. We need to decide how many people are permitted to come and claim asylum in the UK. The problem is that the way the asylum system is put together, you can only claim asylum if you're physically in the UK. The only way you can physically come in the UK is if you come here in a regular route, and not because there are no safe legal routes. So asylum.
No, there are 9 safe legal routes. What about people from Hong Kong? What about people previously from Afghanistan and Iraq? Am I wrong on that?
Well, if you don't come within those safe...
So there are safe legal routes. You said a minute ago there weren't.
But if you're from Yemen, there isn't. If you're from Iraq...
But there are... Sorry, Ivon, you said a minute ago there weren't safe legal routes. There are safe legal routes. They do exist. They don't exist for everybody, but they do exist.
Yeah, but I agree with that. But the point is that as an asylum seeker, there should be a way to come to the UK.
Why?
Well, because if you're fleeing persecution and you have family members in the UK, you're entitled to come here and claim asylum as well.
Well, you're not entitled to come and claim asylum, as you've just explained, Ivon. So, I mean, we do take a lot of asylum seekers. We take more than our fair share of asylum seekers. And people who are fleeing persecution, I'm very happy with them to be in this country. We are a nation which has taken a lot of people from Ukraine and so on. But the fact is that so many people are abusing this system. Keir Starmer has set out a plan which so many people are unhappy with and seems to be, will mean, if it's implemented, that even more people come to this country. We're straining. The public services are straining under the weight that is there.
It's not true. This is the propaganda.
You don't think public services are straining? You don't think public...
I don't agree with that.
You don't agree... Hold on. 7.7 million people in England alone are on an NHS waiting list. You don't think that's got anything to do with immigration?
Well, you're asking me a question, but you're not letting me answer. So, no, we're not straining. Look, we're 17.
We're not straining. Sorry, I just think that's absolute nonsense. Have you tried to get an NHS appointment recently? I mean, you are answering... Let me shut up and let you answer the question. But I just don't think you're living in reality, Ivon.
No, I don't think you are. Look, if NHS waiting lists are long, it's not because of asylum seekers, because the NHS doesn't have proper funding and proper systems. Don't blame everything on asylum seekers, Peter.
I'm not blaming everything on asylum seekers.
The reason the NHS thing is going up is because of asylum seekers, right? Let's blame them.
No. But it's part of it.
If you let me finish, we are 17th on the list of EU countries on the number of asylum seekers.
We're not an EU country.
17th.
We're not an EU country.
We take within the EU region, we take a fraction of what other countries take. That is a fact. And the other thing is, we don't let people work when they come here. We blame them for costing us a lot of money.
How many asylum seekers did we take last year, Ivon? You're the expert. How many asylum seekers did we take last year in this country?
50,000.
50,000,
right?
okay.
You know what? And I'll tell you what's going to happen is, it's going to go up. It's going to exponentially rise unless we address the problem. We should be taking 100,000 a year. Now, look at the Rishi Sunak's plans.
What was net migration last year?
Sorry?
What was net migration to this country?
Over 500,000, 600,000.
So you think, hold on a second, sorry. Yeah. So we can, I mean, I think we're actually, despite the fact we're having quite a heated discussion here this morning, we're probably on roughly the same side on legitimate asylum seekers. If people have a legitimate reason to be in this country and they're being persecuted, if someone's coming from Iraq, Afghanistan, Ukraine, I'm happy enough with that. There are parts of Africa as well where people are absolutely, there's no doubt about it, they're being persecuted, and we should take some asylum seekers. But you're saying, and tell me if I'm wrong on this, but you're saying that the fact that we have more than 500,000 people net in this country last year alone isn't putting pressure on public services, and the NHS is underfunded, despite the fact that in 2010 it had £139 billion given to it. Now it has £180 billion given to the NHS, but you still think it's underfunded, and there is no pressure on public services from the fact that we have 500,000 more people in this country. How is that? Is that your position? Am I characterising that correctly, Ivon?
Yes, and let me tell you about the facts. A migrant pays for NHS services, first of all. Not only do they pay for it every year, but they also pay national insurance contributions. In fact, they pay twice for the services they get, a migrant. And let me ask you a question. Do you know what the value of students brought to this country last year in billions?
Tell me.
Have you any idea? £30 billion into our economy. That paid for our services. Look, migrants bring net benefits. We don't have enough skilled workers. I'm all for having jobs for British workers. Problem is, we don't have the people to do it. That's a long-term policies that the government have to do. But at the moment,
we do factually have the people to do it. They're just not trained properly. We have 1.1 million job vacancies in this country, and we have 1.3 million people.
Semantics. We don't have people
semantics. If 1.3 million people are unemployed. 1.3 million people, to say nothing of all those people are economically inactive, people are disabled, they could possibly do some work, some disabled people, not all disabled people, and we should support them if they can't work. But the fact is...
I'm currently bringing 13 lorry mechanics from South Africa, 30 lorry. The salary is £80,000 a year. Do you know what? We haven't got people to do those jobs here. That is a problem. So my clients having to go to South Africa to bring 30 lorry mechanics, and he'd love to recruit here, even as an academy, to try and train people up here. But he can't find the workers. This is a problem. Businesses need workers. If we don't have workers, we can't create wealth. That is a fact. So migration is good. You say repeat after me, Peter. Migration is good. It's not a bad thing.
It can be. It can be a great thing. I know lots of migrants who do a fantastic job in this country and contribute to it. But it is nonetheless the case, factually, that if you have 500,000 more people in a country, it is going to put pressure on public services. What about housing, for example? We don't have enough houses in this country as it is already. And the fact that we have 500,000 more people, they might all be wonderful. They might all be wonderful people who contribute to the economy.
Yeah, build more houses. That's the policy.
Okay, so we build more houses. The NHS is... Sorry, just in your socialist utopia, we build more houses. The NHS is underfunded despite the fact that there are £180 billion a year given to the NHS in England alone, and everything's the government's fault. Well, let me know about what you think about Keir Starmer's thoughts on this, because his plan is to take even more people.
Keir Starmer's plans, I think, could work. The problem is implementation. Both governments, both parties have this problem of returning failed asylum seekers. We need to deal with the EU. And I think I know what the EU wants. They want freedom of movement back. That's what they want. There's a trade-off. So it's a
trade-off. So you think we should have freedom of movement back? You think that would be a good thing?
I think it would be a fantastic thing to have freedom of movement back. That would resolve...
What about the democratic will of the people to stop freedom of movement? What about the majority of people who voted for Brexit in 2016?
You asked me a question whether I think it's a good thing. You didn't ask me about... And I said...
Well, I'm now asking you a secondary bit. You see, you ask the first question, then you give the answer. You listen to the answer, and then then you ask them a next question based on the answer they've given. So, Ivon, what do you think about the fact that Brexit said people shouldn't have freedom of movement? I mean, that would be... Were we to go back to freedom of movement, for example, that would be a rejection of the democratic will of the people, would it not?
Yeah, and that's for the incoming when the government, when the elections happen, for them to sell it.
So they should potentially ignore the result of a referendum.
No, not at all. I said they should sell it to the people. Look, finally, the spike in small boats coincided with us leaving the EU, exactly the same time. Why? Because the French are not stopping the boats. Why? Because we're no longer in the EU. We need to deal with the EU. The EU can stop the small boats. That is the only policy that's really going to work. Because once you get here, the problem we have is, if you're a failed asylum seeker, we can't send you anywhere. The government had great plans, send them to a safe third country. Brilliant plan. Problem, Rwanda's not a safe third country. Great plan, put them on barges to save costs. Problem, it's not a safe barge. So the government plans have been great ideas, they just haven't implemented them. The backlog, let's put more people into the decision-making process. There are more decision makers than ever before. Is it working? No, it isn't. So it's not the ideas. The government is incompetent to implement the ideas. That is a problem.